So, Catherine, I'm going to turn it over to you. Catherine's got a great story for us tonight, and then we're going to go with Katie after that. So, Catherine, welcome and thank you.
I was going to say, I don't know if I prepared the right thing, but it doesn't matter because this is what you get. Because I was talking, what I'm going to tell you about is why I run, I think. So running to me is way more than just my feet on the ground and miles under the treads of my shoes so that I have to come and replace them on a periodic basis at Bandanna here. For me, running is an exploration. It's an exploration of a whole bunch of different things. For one, new places that I visit. And so I'm remembering one Thanksgiving morning in particular, and this seems to be like my Thanksgiving memory, is early in the morning in a riverfront Missouri town. The clouds are hanging low and it's kind of damp, and I'm alone because everybody else is making turkey and stuff like that. And I'm running in a neighborhood where there's all these antebellum homes, great big old Civil War, the columns and the whole 9 yards, and the history is just oozing out of the cobblestones. And here I am, absorbing it all. And I remember one time running across in the national park in Hawaii, running across the caldera with the steam rising, and it's this weird landscape, and I realized that my feet are hot. And this is a park. This is a set trail. The stones the rocks are all hardened, but there is lava, not that much farther, not all that far beneath my feet. And feeling the power of that kind of place. So running for me is also an exploration of where I live, in the trails and the foothills. Like, what's around? Or I wonder where that trail goes. These little cow paths that go off, and sometimes there are runs and sometimes there aren't. Or sometimes it involves run through the neighborhood of seeing architecture and gardens and flowers and things that I don't notice when I'm just driving by. It's a new way of seeing where I live. So running for me is noticing things. The tracks of the deer. I've learned, what is that weird look? It's a snake track going across the dust. I noticed the coyote. I saw a coyote the other day in the neighborhood. And not only that, there were two of them. And we just watched each other. It's the owls hooting in the trees. It's the bunny scooting into the sagebrush. Sometimes I actually see the deer, but it's always the sound of the meadowlark. And running takes me to a place in my heart that's deeper than I ever knew existed. It's running in the morning, which is when I run, before the dawn. There is something that doesn't happen any other time of the day. It's a hush. It's a magic. It's a time when all things are possible. And here I am. And it's this overwhelming sense of gratitude for exerting and sweating and breathing hard and being alive in this time and in this place. So running to me is being sensitive to the wonders around me, but also in me. A story that I tell is sometimes I've been driving down Harrison Boulevard on my way to work, late of course, and going, I feel like bursting into tears. And for no particular reason, and if I examine that feeling and kind of play it out, I'll go, oh, I haven't really. Or sometimes, all the time when I run, it's a time for my mind to kind of space out. I do this free-form stream of consciousness stuff, and I can remember once or twice getting to the high point in my run and bursting into tears. It's a release, but it's also a renewal and a promise, because I am here, and I am running, and I'm strong, and I'm going to be okay. So I don't know what I would do without running. It's as much mental health as it is physical health for me. So I guess here's the story, is that I wasn't always that way. I didn't always run. I'm the eldest of 5 sisters, and Title IX was passed just a couple of years before I graduated from high school, so I didn't really reap the benefits of that. Plus, I was busy rebelling and protesting and anything organized I wouldn't have had anything to do with. So it was those years. So it was my middle sister who first ran track, and she did pretty well. and it was kind of fun. And then my youngest sisters, who are twins, ran as well and kind of took running to a new level. So I would go to, they would run, they would come in first and second at track meets, sometimes in their own style, crossing the finish line, holding hands, so somebody else would have to decide who's first or second. And all the sisters look alike, and I would go to track meets, and people would look like, you know, the twins? And I go, no. But they are my sisters. So I would claim that. All three of my sisters were inspirations to me. So at the time, I worked in this little, teeny shopper newspaper. This is my big step on the career to working at the Statesman. And we all smoked. Everybody in the office smoked. I smoked for a long time. But I was going to cross-country meets, and there wasn't all that many of them. But there's something about those that gnawed at me. And I was influenced, I think, by the enthusiasm and the camaraderie and the confidence and the energy that was exuded there when my sisters ran. And so it didn't make sense for me to smoke and run. So I did probably what was the hardest thing in my life, is I quit smoking in an office where everybody else kept smoking. But the reward was, I got to run. So I started just little, around the block. I mean, anyways, I'm not a track star. I'm not like Rich. To make myself feel better, sometimes I go, well, I'm a little bit faster than average. The truth is, I am who I am. The highlight of my career externally was in a little teeny race in a little teeny town, kind of like yours in Missouri, and I was the first woman finisher. So I have a little blue ribbon to prove that. But that is not why I race. My sisters taught me a long, long time ago that every race is against yourself, and the rest is great. So just showing up is, you get all your rewards for that. So one of my first races in Kansas City was an Avon race, which is a women's series a long time ago. It was a pretty big deal at the time. And I stuck around for them to announce, for the awards. And they were doing the age group winners. And they were announcing them, and it was like 60 and 70-year-olds, and I'm like, dead in my tracks going, I have to do this until I'm and then now I have a different perspective on it. It's like, no, I get to do this until I'm 60 or 70 or 80. So that's all the reward. So I came to Boise in 1990 as a photographer at the Statesman, and I've done, I raced here and there. I've placed in my age group a couple of times at Zeitgeist, and I've run Roby Creek, and I wrestle with the training because I dislike having to run. So I guess I came in here one time and I got a book by Rob Galloway, who talks about, I was having trouble running 5 and 6 and 7 miles every day before work. That was a problem, and then so I got this book by Rob Galloway.
Yeah, no.
Is it okay? It was like you do your long runs on the weekends, and you kind of support it with 1, 2, 3, 4 miles every day. Like that changed my life because I can do that. I can do long runs on my days off. But usually I would run Roby Creek. Roby Creek training interferes with skiing. So that was a problem, and I would run Roby Creek, and then I'm like, I'm not doing this again. And then I would be sent to cover Roby Creek for work, take photos, and I'm like, I can't stand this. I'm doing Roby Creek next year for sure. So that's how it would go on and off. I think because of my own experience running cross-country meets, it's my very favorite thing to cover. Like, you can have football, but send me to Eagle Island to cover those races, the high school runners, and I think it's the same thing. It's the camaraderie, it's the energy, it's the sense of empowerment and strength and confidence for a lifetime. So I'm almost at the end, and I have 2 little more snippets. My middle sister now goes to races and cheers on her son, my nephew. As he's running, and she yells a lot of things at him as he's running. One of the things that she yells at him is, no regrets. And that was kind of interesting, so I asked her about it one time, and she's like, I will not tolerate him coming home and going, I think I could have run faster, or I should have run faster, or I should have, kicked in a little earlier. She's like, no, you do it, and you have no regrets. And then the other thing is my youngest sisters, the twins, when they tell this story, when they would go off to races, my mother would tell them as they went out the door, wings on your feet. So that became kind of a family phrase. And years later, when my mother approached her own death, that would be the thing that we would say to her as she passed on. It's like, wings on your feet. And so this is how I'm going to end and leave you with this, that whatever your dreams are, running can take you there, both literally and figuratively. So, wings on your feet, whatever your dreams are, and regrets.